Hi everyone, Ian from AnandTech here, and today I'm just doing a short video because I've got hold of this, the Subor Z Plus, or Z Plus if you're British. This is the new console coming out of China, which uses a custom AMD chip. This is 4 Zen cores and 24 compute units of Vega, all using a GDDR5 interface with 8GB of GDDR5 between the CPU and the GPU. Now, I've just literally unboxed it and I'm going to turn it on for the first time. I'm going to try and install Steam and let's see what we get with a couple of games. And here we go. So this Perspex strip on the top, we've got two USB ports on the front, power button, a black finish, and here we go. This little logo is the Subor Z Plus logo. And this is meant to be the PC version of the hardware, so it's literally just going to be running Windows. Later in the year there's going to be a console version which will dual boot with Subor Z's custom OS. So let's install Windows. I am in the UK, so can I change the language? English. Okay, go. Yes, I accept I'm running Windows. Use Express settings. So this unit came bundled with 128GB SSD with a 1TB hard drive. Those are user replaceable as well. There's a little latch mechanism underneath which makes it very easy. Standard OS setup here. Let's see, the system should restart and we should be in Windows. Going. So we're connected to the monitor here by HDMI. There's a HDMI cable included in the box. There are 4 USB ports on the back and an Ethernet port. There's also built-in 2x2 AC Wi-Fi. So we're currently connecting to the network via the Wi-Fi. In our package, we were bundled with a HDMI cable, a micro USB cable, which looks like it should be for a controller. We weren't bundled a controller, and the power cable, which is a standard 3-pin kettle lead. So this is it. This is the Windows interface, and it's standard Windows 10. It looks like there's. So if you can see this, we've got a small little icon here, low power mode, minimize. This is called RUI Assist. So Subor Z Plus, the console, is made by a company called Play RUI, and so they have additional software here. This is their logo. Let's go straight into the system. So manufacturer Subor, model SRY18, 3 GHz, installed memory 8 GB with 5 GB available. So we emailed the company behind Subor and they said out of the 8 gigs of memory, 6 will be available for the CPU and 2 for the GPU, which is perhaps the balance that we would expect. Windows 10 Enterprise LTSB. So this looks like a special edition just for the review units, which means I'm not sure how up to date we are with patches. So first thing to do is let's get some Steam going. Now luckily in the past couple of weeks I've built my own Steam cache, so we should be pulling off the network at the full speed of the Wi-Fi. So actually let's go look in the storage. So we have a WinOS on a C drive, that's 60 gig. Okay, and then a data drive at 1 terabyte. So let's install to the D drive. Run Steam. I'm actually just going to pause it there for a second. Sorry about that. Now, it turns out that downloading on Steam with a very slow mechanical hard drive, even with a local cache, takes a few hours. So what I've done is I've downloaded some of the games off Steam, also run a game that I know takes a long time, but first I just want to take a look at Device Manager, which is this window on the left. We've got the two drives, the 128 gig SSD, the 1 terabyte mechanical Toshiba drive. Under processors it says DG02 SRT BB4 MFA, and there's 8 of them, so that's quad core with simultaneous multi-threading. And display adapters it says AMD 15FF graphics, which if you've been following some of the leaks about this chip, that correlates to some of those leaks. So first benchmark I'm going to bring up is the Final Fantasy 15 Windows Edition benchmark. This takes about 6 minutes to run, and at standard quality at 1080p full screen we get a score of 5100. Now compare that to a similar sort of processor, the 35-watt APU fixed at 3 GHz with an RX 480, which has 50% more SPs, but it's Polaris, not Vega. That scored about 5,700. So there's some data. Down here it says that the specifications, we've got AMD 15FF graphics with a custom graphics driver. I spoke with Subor and they said they have their own version of the graphics drivers. So you can't use the standard AMD graphics drivers. But they'll be releasing updates for those as through the system's life cycle, and 2 gig of DRAM of GDDR5, as we said. So let's fire up some benchmarks. Let's go to Far Cry 5. Haven't actually installed these yet, so this might take a little while. See if we can get Katamari while we wait for this to install. What do you think about it? No, you want to go down. Let's get rid of Final Fantasy there. So while this installs, one of the issues with having the mechanical hard drive as a second drive was just that it was really slow. It would write for about 10 seconds at 40 megabytes per second and then just pause while it was dealing with the data. It seems to be, a sort of low-end Toshiba drive, so it looks like one of the recommendations might be for this is to try and grab something like a 512GB 2.5-inch SATA SSD and replace them in. The second drive is replaceable. First drive technically is replaceable, but you then need to install an OS, which means you then need the graphics drivers, which currently aren't available, but they soon will be. I'm not sure about the custom Subor software, whether that will, because there isn't like a driver disk, because it's meant to be sold, you know, like a ready out of the box console. Come on, Far Cry 5. I'll cut it there and come back when it's ready. Okay, let's try that again. Let's go for Far Cry. I've preloaded all my games this time, so we're going to go for 3. We're going to try Far Cry 5, we're going to do Car Mechanic Simulator 2018 because I now have a script for it, and Formula 1 2018. And yes, these games do take a while to load because of the mechanical hard drive. So it's already taken about, what, 45 seconds to load? I think one of the best things to do for users who get this is to invest in one of the new QLC drives and use that as your Steam drive. So let's go through these warnings. Yes, AMD logo. It's saying the graphics driver is out of date, but we can't update it anyway. So given that this is aimed to be a sort of mid-range card, let's go for some mid-range graphics options, I think. Video adapter, AMD 15FF graphics, full screen, 1080, settings. Let's go for normal with TAA anti-aliasing. I don't like motion blur, let's turn motion blur off. Actually, that says it's going to be using 2.6 gigabytes of memory, so 1080 is going to be too much for this. Let's go down to 1600 by 900 and see what it says. Okay. And on low, we're 1.92 gigabytes of VRAM. So the only way we were able to even get something playable, or within memory, let's have a look. Let's use the in-game test. This lasts about a minute or so. When it loads everything. Still loading. So overall results, average FPS 41, and actually for most of the time, for the beginning 30 seconds or so, it was under 30, let's be honest. Minimum 22. Yeah, it's a better integrated graphics. I think, well, for this benchmark anyway, the 2 gigabytes of VRAM that it allocates isn't enough, basically. So that's Far Cry. Let's move on to Car Mechanic Simulator. For those of you who have never heard or wondering exactly why Car Mechanic Simulator, it has an in-game benchmark again, which is where it sort of pans around a garage with 5 cars, and they're all rendered in nice detail. I don't know, I like my car racing, maybe that's why. Intro videos. So let's go for some video settings. Let's go for 1080, but stick it on low. This means there's no anti-aliasing, no bloom, no motion blur, texture size is small. Now this benchmark is nice in the sense that it loads all the assets before you start the test. That way the hard drive isn't meant to be as much of an issue, as much of a comparison point in the test. So hopefully it shouldn't bottleneck. Despite that, it's still loading. Here we go. So this is also a standard 1 minute test, and we've got an FPS counter down here that's saying about 53. Now even though this game does count all the frames, it doesn't actually output the data as frame time data, so we can't get percentiles out of it. So as part of my benchmark script for this year and next, I'm able to implement, because it has this load everything, wait, and then press start, I can implement a fraps layer on top of it, no issue. I can actually hear the fan whirring. It's kind of a low hum, as opposed to my laptop, which is going crazy. So benchmark result, FPS 51.66, minimum frame rate 37.29. Oh, and that wasn't run at low, that was run at high. So 51 FPS at 1080p high. It obviously didn't save all my settings. Let's move on to Formula 1 2018 next. This one's going to be popular for benchmarks because it also has a benchmarking mode. For my testing anyway, I'm not sure what Nate does exactly, but we run the benchmark. We do a single lap of Canada in the wet, starting in Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes in 20th place. He normally gets up to about 16th in one lap in the wet, and we run that test 4 times. So let's go to game options and settings, graphics options, video mode 720, anti-aliasing is set to TAA again, AF is off, advanced setup, let's go for medium, so everything's pretty much medium except for the crowd and smoke, and benchmark mode. So let me do what I would do. Let's go Canada in the heavy rain, camera mode in the nose, and 1 lap. And looks like we are in Kimi Räikkönen. No, Vettel's car starting 10th. So the funny thing is, might not show up too well in the video, but because it's in the wet, there's a lot of spray everywhere. So the idea is that the driver can't see. Yet the game still has to render what's in front of it because that's what happens. And we've lost a place to Sorokin. Okay, this test doesn't come out too well with the white balance. But FPS is about 63, 64. So it looks like, yeah, if you wanted the full 60 frames per second experience, 720p medium. Coming up to the Wall of Champions, and then to the line. So here it shows again CPU as that DG02 SRT BP4 MFA, AMD 15FF graphics, 6 GB of RAM, 720p medium, minimum FPS 54, average FPS 62, and then we got, you know, frame times. So that's a quick look at this Subor Z Plus PC console. It weighs 3.6 kilos, so it's very definitely a PC. Technically it's meant to have something like 160 watt TDP, but it's got no turbo on the CPU, so this is going to be interesting to test. I think what I'll do to make the APU comparisons equal is take out that mechanical hard drive, put in one of my standard SSDs, and then away we go. So stay tuned for more analysis of this SoC.